I'll just say it straight. You're cheating, aren't you? I finally said it. Alex's eyes widened in shock. But after pressing his brows together and thinking for a moment, he smiled smugly. So it finally came out, huh? Well, yeah, I guess I've been pretty free. Alex admitted without a hint of remorse. There's something I want to tell you too. He walked up to me with a lewd smile and said, "Take good care of the kid with the incurable disease, will you?" Excuse me? That kid, he's attached to you. Make him happy. That's the least you could do, right? In exchange, I'll focus on my new girl. If Hannah and I have a boy, he's going to be the future president. In essence, Alex plans to father a child with Hannah. To ensure a secure future, powered by the influence of having the president's child. It's a shameless plan of relying on others. At that moment, the door slammed open, and Keith appeared. Maneuvering his wheelchair skillfully, he moved close to Alex. Then, surprisingly, he stood up and exclaimed, "Mom, it's time to fight back. I am Jessica Reed, 30 years old. I became a full-time housewife after getting married, but now, I'm troubled about my child. Though I say my child, there's no blood relation between us. He's Alex's son from a previous marriage. He's a quiet kid," he had said, and brought the child the day after we registered our marriage. I knew Alex was divorced, but I hadn't expected him to have a child, let alone one he was raising. Quiet doesn't really help me understand. Unfazed by my confusion, Alex replied without any hint of guilt. "No, really, he's very quiet. He's just 3 years old, but doesn't cause any trouble." Looking at the child, who was curiously gazing up at me, I felt an indescribable emotion. His name is Keith. "Look, Keith, say hi to your new mom." Keith, urged by Alex, looked up at me and bowed slightly in greeting. "New mom. Well, I bet you're surprised, but that's how it is. Please take care of him," Alex said. I'm not proud to admit it, but I'm not good at standing up for myself. I might have been able to protest if Keith wasn't there in front of me. But faced with his curious, innocent eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say a word of complaint to Alex. And so, I became a mother to a 3-year-old as soon as I got married. I had always thought I'd want kids eventually, but I never imagined I'd skip straight to being a mother. As Alex said, Keith was an easy child for a 3-year-old. He ate what was given to him and never threw tantrums. He was truly a good kid. He really is quiet. Right? Well, I wouldn't really know. What? According to Alex, before our marriage, his parents were the ones taking care of Keith. With my busy job, there's no way I could take care of a kid. Is that so? But now that you, Jessica, are unemployed, I'm relieved. Childcare was entirely left to the in-laws, and Alex would only see them on weekends. Because of this, the in-laws were extremely grateful to me. We're getting old, you know. It's not that we don't love him, but it's honestly hard. Having Keith around makes it hard to stick to plans. Plans? You know, kids get sick suddenly, and if they make a fuss, it's just too much to handle. The in-laws nodded in agreement, portraying themselves as people who had endured a lot, while Keith watched them expressionlessly. Despite concerns about his health, he didn't seem like the type to make a fuss. I was naive to think that. I underestimated how quiet Keith had been because he was still wary of me, a stranger. No, that's dangerous. Yay! Cheese. A 3-year-old is more active than I anticipated. He would bring a step stool to rummage through the fridge or mess with the stove knobs. There were times he played with the remaining bathwater and got completely soaked. Today, he drew on the wall with a permanent marker. When I reported tiredly to Alex when he came home from work, Alex responded, "Huh, really? As if it were someone else's problem. Raising a child is harder than I thought. Hey, could you take care of him this weekend? I want to catch up on some housework." With Keith needing constant attention on weekdays, I could barely manage the day's chores. It's been half a year since I moved into this house after getting married. And there are still unpacked boxes. If Alex could watch him, I could focus on that. However, Alex's response was unexpected. "What? Why should I?" "But, you're Keith's." "What? Just because Keith isn't related to you by blood, you're saying you'll abandon parenting?" I was speechless. Me, abandon parenting? No one said that. I just wanted to do the household chores I can't do on a daily basis. And asked him to look after Keith on his day off. I'm just saying I want you to spend a little time playing with Keith. That's impossible. Alex sighed heavily. You're unemployed, right? I'm the one working here. I'm supporting us, and you're talking nonsense? That's unfair. You could at least help a bit. You're off work anyway. That's the point. It's my day off. Looking after a child is just tiring. Why do you think I married you? What do you mean? You married me just to be a child caregiver? Alex visibly regretted his words and apologized, but in the end, he only played with Keith for about an hour on Saturday morning before I noticed he had gone out. Really? What a trouble. Keith tightly grasped my little finger. Mom, are you tired? Are you okay? With his chubby cheeks, Keith tilted his head. Just a bit. But I'm okay. Seeing you makes me feel better. Hugging him while saying, "Hug tight," Keith screamed. "Ah!" and laughed joyously. Every day, doing household chores while keeping Keith entertained was exhausting. I was tired. But over time, I had come to love Keith as my own child. It was then that I noticed something odd about Keith's walking. And took him to the pediatrician, hoping it was just my overconcern. While hoping for the best during the examination, what the doctor told me was shocking. There is a possibility that you may become unable to walk if things continue like this. Keith could have a rare disease. As the doctor explained, my mind went blank. I wanted to discuss it with Alex immediately, but he seemed to be at work and unreachable. Eventually, Alex came home at night without having returned my calls. What's with all these calls? I'm at work, and getting so many calls is troublesome. This is why being unemployed is. Alex sighed exaggeratedly, oblivious to everything. I couldn't help but feel tears welling up in my eyes. Keith was at the hospital today. As I spoke with a trembling voice, Alex covered his mouth and his eyes widened in shock. What's that? The prognosis varies among individuals. But there's a possibility, according to the doctor. He's currently hospitalized for tests. Please, come with me to his next appointment. I asked because I thought I couldn't handle it alone. Having Alex by my side would have been a great support. Despite being busy, this was an emergency. Alex should have been able to take some leave. Yet, Alex shook his head. I don't know anything about it. What? A rare disease? What's that? My child can't be flawed. Flawed? How could you say such a thing? My sadness quickly turned to anger, and as I trembled with fury, Alex frowned at me. It must be the fault of his previous woman. Her bad genes are to blame. Damn it, pushing this onto me. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Alex wasn't concerned about Keith, he was just making excuses. Damn it. I shouldn't have taken him in. Jessica, you're his mother, right? From now on, it's all on you. I'm too busy. He walked away toward the changing room as if fleeing, leaving me staring after him in disbelief. Mixed feelings of worry about what to do next, and a resolve that I had to be the one to do it swirled within me. From that day on, Alex started coming home later. Was it because he couldn't face reality, or simply because he found it too troublesome? I figured it was the latter. I decided not to expect anything from Alex. I had to protect Keith myself. Mom. Keith. Good morning. I've missed you. Fortunately, thanks to Alex, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had plenty of time. For that, I am grateful. A week later, Keith was discharged from the hospital. On the day of his discharge, I asked Alex to come pick us up. Alex was good at keeping up appearances. Thank you for everything. We will work together as a family from now on. So please support us. Alex said, despite not knowing about his son's condition and running from reality. I also took the opportunity to thank everyone and then got into the car with Keith and Alex. After coming home, Keith was forced to live in a wheelchair. Seeing him unable to run around and looking bored every day was heartbreaking. Alex continued to come home late as usual. That's it, I thought, looking for a way to cheer Keith up, and gifted him a drawing set. I used to love drawing too, and I was quite good at it. Wow, Keith, you're really good at drawing. Really? Just like Mom? Keith seemed delighted, whether it was the praise or the joy of sharing something with me. He eagerly dove into drawing. Before we knew it, 4 years had passed, and Keith turned 7. Living in a wheelchair seemed tough. But Keith seemed to enjoy elementary school, which was a relief. I tried to talk to Alex multiple times, but it felt like he was avoiding the conversation. As I struggled with our situation, I discovered Alex's infidelity. A friend unexpectedly informed me. I'm sorry to bring this up suddenly, but I saw your husband coming out of a hotel with a young woman. The message came with several photos. Come to think of it, Alex hadn't come home since yesterday. I hadn't paid much attention, wondering if he was on a business trip. As I continued to talk with my friend, I could tell she was being very considerate. Shortly after, she called. Jessica, are you okay? Should I come over? Her worried voice asked. Of course, she must have struggled to decide to tell me. But I felt almost sorry for her because I wasn't as surprised as she might have expected. I had suspected something about Alex. His job didn't usually require late nights, yet recently, he'd been coming home late or not at all. We slept in separate bedrooms. And I occasionally heard him laughing and talking on the phone late at night. I'm fine, actually. This might even help me move forward with a divorce. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. Thanks. As soon as I hung up the phone, I was suddenly overwhelmed by a sense of despair. So this is how it feels to confirm your suspicions, I thought. A dark feeling swirled inside me. It wasn't just the shock of infidelity, but the realization that while I struggled alone, Alex was freely enjoying himself. While I worried and cried over Keith, Alex was having a good time with another woman. Tears came for a different reason. Keith is incredibly dear and beloved to me. With that love comes an endless sense of responsibility and pressure each day. Sometimes, feeling almost overwhelmed by it. I make an effort not to show any signs of distress or sadness. To think that all these efforts have led to this situation. It's such a betrayal. What should I do now? Pretend nothing happened and continue as we are, or confront the infidelity and pursue a divorce? Which would be better for Keith? The more I thought, the more overwhelmed I felt, tears blurring my vision. So much so, I didn't notice Keith entering the room. Mom. Are you crying? Keith. This is... Who? Is it Dad? Did Dad do something to you? Why would you think that? I was careful never to badmouth Alex in front of Keith, avoiding any negative talk about him. Because Dad doesn't like me, right? So, I thought he might have done something to you, Mom. And, I didn't want to say, but I saw Dad on a date with another woman. They looked happy. I saw them once. Keith said, looking down. I hugged him tightly. To think he was carrying such thoughts. This was no longer just my problem. We had to face it head-on. Do you like Dad? After a moment's hesitation, he answered shyly. I love Mom. I love you too, Keith. From that moment, I began to take steps toward divorce. Hiring a private investigator to gather evidence on the affair. Aiming to strengthen my position. Eventually, everything was in place. I decided to confront Alex the next day he returned home. It seemed he had been home a few times, cleverly avoiding me. His belongings and bank documents were still here, so he had to return at some point. That's when we would have to talk. I was determined, or so I thought. But doubts occasionally shook me. Is this really the right decision? I no longer had any love for Alex and was convinced I wouldn't regret a divorce. Yet, thinking of Keith, I hesitated. There's no blood relation between us, which troubled me. I planned to take custody post-divorce, and I couldn't imagine Alex objecting. But is it better for Keith to have a father, even one like Alex, in name only? Alex had been avoiding home, and without a word from him, a divorce seemed unlikely. If we remained silent, would this life just continue? We wouldn't have to worry about money, a thought that momentarily comforted me. Mom. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, Keith tightly squeezed my hand. It's okay. I'm here with you. Despite being only 7 years old, his dependable words made me smile involuntarily. Yes, Mom will do her best too, so let's work hard together, okay? Yep. 2 days later, late at night, Alex came home temporarily. We need to talk. The next day, when Alex woke up before noon, I broached the subject with him. What? You want to talk? It's probably something bothersome, right? Give me a break, I just got back. Alex yawned widely. I let out a sigh and looked him straight in the eye. I'm just going to say it directly. You're cheating, aren't you? Alex's eyes widened in surprise, but after a moment of thought, he smirked. So it finally came out, huh? Well, yeah, I guess I've been pretty free. You're admitting it. Yeah. Looks like you're planning to divorce me, huh? If you have the divorce papers, just hand them over. I'll sign them quickly. I hadn't expected him to cling, but I was even more surprised by his readiness to admit everything. Alex's smile grew wider as he saw my astonishment. You thought I'd make more of a scene, didn't you? Indeed. I didn't expect you to admit it so readily. Well, I guess I feel more at ease now. After all, my fate is now with the president's daughter? Wow, you've done your homework, Jessica. Alex feigned surprise and clapped his hands exaggeratedly. Yeah, I met her through work. She's the so-called president's daughter. She said she'd pay whatever it takes for us to be together, including any compensation. But was he hoping to escape by any chance? I was tempted to press further but managed to hold back. Is that so? That's good for you. It makes things easier for us too. But there's just one thing I want to confirm. I also have something I want to tell you. Alex approached me with a sleazy grin. Take good care of the kid with the rare disease, will you? Excuse me? He's fond of you. Make him happy. That's the least you could do, right? In exchange, I'll focus on my new family. If Hannah and I have a boy, he'll eventually become the president. In essence, Alex plans to father a child with Hannah, the president's daughter. A future secured by nepotism. A disappointing reliance on others. Then, the door banged open, and Keith appeared. Navigating his wheelchair skillfully, he moved close to Alex. Then, surprisingly, he stood up and declared, "Mom, it's time to fight back." Alex was shocked, staring with his mouth agape. "Keith, you. I thought you couldn't walk. Why are you standing?" "I worked hard." Keith, once thought to never walk again, had diligently worked on his rehabilitation and could now take a few steps on his own. "Well, that's great, isn't it?" Alex responded with a forced bravado. "Indeed. Thanks to that, he's been making great progress. He even helped me prepare for this divorce. You didn't have to involve the kid in this." Surprisingly, it seemed he wanted to appear impressive in front of the child. Alex was slightly shaken. A good negative example. "Ugh. Fine. I have the president's daughter on my side. You and your defective family can settle for less. By the way, which president's daughter is Hannah?" Alex chuckled. "Get ready to be shocked. Hannah is the daughter of Johnson Construction's president." Johnson Construction was one of the largest companies in the area. His pride in dating the president's daughter was understandable. However, Alex was greatly mistaken about one thing, unaware as he proudly puffed out his chest. I feigned ignorance and asked, "Johnson Construction? That's impressive." "I'm shocked. Right?" As Alex nodded in agreement, I smiled warmly and told him. Who would have thought Alex was into that? "I'm sorry I didn't notice it sooner." "What?" Seeing Alex looking puzzled, I continued. "So, you're into men, not women. That's what you're saying." "What?" "No. Hannah is a cute girl." "That's strange. The president of Johnson Construction doesn't have a daughter." "No way. You're lying. Just wait and listen." Though trying to act tough, Alex was clearly panicking. He pulled out his phone, his hands trembling, and called Hannah. Switching to speakerphone so everyone could hear. "Hey, Hannah, listen. I just heard something unbelievable. Sorry for the weird question, but you're a girl, right?" Alex asked nervously. To which Hannah responded nonchalantly. "Oh dear, it's finally come out." "What?" The color drained from Alex's face. He turned pale. "You mean, that time? It wasn't there, was it?" Alex must be referring to the male symbol. Despite having had a physical relationship, it seems he can't believe she was male. Hannah responds calmly to this revelation. "Of course, that's because I've already had surgery. I'm a girl, both body and soul." "Oh, but my family registry hasn't been changed yet." "My dad's been a bit reluctant about that." Hannah was unfazed by the discovery that she was originally male. On the other hand, Alex's face turned pale, and he collapsed to his knees. "No way. Hannah was a man? Hey. That's rude, Alex. I am a girl, in body and soul." "Shut up. Don't give me that nonsense. A man is a man." Alex shouted into the phone, anger filling the silent living room. I was slightly worried that Hannah might be shocked by Alex's reaction. But it quickly became clear that she was not bothered. "What? Alex, that's unbelievable. After you said you loved me. Such a big liar. Forget it. I'm calling off introducing you to my dad and the headhunting offer. Goodbye." "Wait, Hannah. That's... Just wait a minute." Hannah declared and then abruptly ended the call. Alex remained kneeling, stunned by the sudden turn of events. He had thought a rosy life with the president's daughter awaited him. But instead, Hannah turned out to be the president's son. Moreover, due to his careless words, their relationship ended abruptly. And Alex, who had indulged in affairs despite being married, still had responsibilities to face. What a shame. But this was your fault. She was a girl in body and soul. That's impossible. If she was originally a man, then she's a man. It disgusts me. I can't believe I was with such a person. How you feel about it is irrelevant to me. What matters more is, how do you plan to pay the compensation? Alex muttered a quiet, then looked around frantically, realizing he had been abruptly abandoned by Hannah. His panic manifested as sweat on his forehead, despite the winter cold, dripping down his cheeks. I won't let you get away with this easily. You'll have to pay compensation and child support. But I don't have any savings. I've spent almost everything on Hannah, and I'm broke. And what does that have to do with our compensation? Alex's eyes darted around in panic. He remained seated, not attempting to stand up. However, after a while, he seemed to have an idea and suddenly snapped to attention. Instead of a one-time compensation, continuous support would be better, right? Excuse me? Alex, looking up at her with pleading eyes, said. You're kind-hearted, Jessica. You were planning to take Keith anyway, right? But think about it. You're unemployed and without savings. The world isn't that easy. And your point is? Let's start over. Alex nodded seriously. Yeah, that's the only option. Doing so will allow us to live as we did before. It's a win-win situation for both of us. Look, this time it's mutual. I see. Can you keep your jokes to just your face, please? Alex froze, his smile twisted in confusion. Pointing a finger at him, I continued. First of all, what do you mean by mutual fault? Why am I being dragged into your wrongdoings? You're the one who cheated and squandered the savings, not me. Don't trivialize this. But you're a housewife without significant qualifications. You won't find a job easily. Wouldn't it be better to get back together? Don't worry, I've already found a job. What? Alex looked puzzled. I said, patting Keith's head. Thanks to Keith. What do you mean? My drawing videos are really popular. Keith proudly showed his tablet to Alex, displaying his youthful handiwork and comforting voice, along with his warm drawings. At 3 years old, when Keith's illness was diagnosed, he could no longer play as other children did. Wanting to find something enjoyable for him, I introduced him to drawing, a hobby I had loved as a child. Back then, I was often praised by those around me for being good at drawing. But Keith had more talent than I ever did. It wasn't just that he was good at drawing. His work had a unique and flavorful style. Above all, he looked truly happy while drawing. Wanting to share this joy with others, I casually filmed him drawing and uploaded the videos to social media with his face hidden. Then, a celebrity noticed and shared Keith's drawing videos, which quickly spread far and wide. Recently, we even started earning income from advertisements on the videos. My video editing skills, which were initially just a hobby, improved significantly as I uploaded videos daily. As a result, I can now take on video editing work for others. Keith's drawing videos are just a hobby. If he ever wants to stop, we'll stop. But I plan to keep learning and working on editing. That way, we might get more requests. So, you don't need to worry about us. Why didn't you tell me Keith was earning so much? If I had known, I would have. I know you too well. You'd get greedy and push Keith too hard. I didn't want that. Alex, clearly hit the mark, clenched his jaw and looked at me with frustration. Besides, after talking to my parents, they also offered their support. I don't need your help, I have plenty of people I can rely on. But. Alex staggered to his feet and grabbed Keith's shoulder. Keith. You want Dad, right? You want to live with Dad because a real family includes Dad, right? Keith stared into Alex's eyes for a moment. Then shook his head and gently removed Alex's hand from his shoulder. I'm fine with just Mom. She's always been there for me. When I was scared and couldn't sleep, when I had a bad day. Or even when I had a good day, Mom was always there to listen. But, Keith, you and Jessica are not related by blood. A real family is with Papa. And you ran away when I was in pain? And you call yourself a father after that? Keith countered with a steady gaze that made Alex falter. Keith. But, I also care about Keith. Stop it already. I'm a grade schooler now. I don't call you a papa anymore. I call Mom a mom, you know? You don't even know that, and you say you're my father? Keith, but you should have just been happy with Hannah. Even if she was a man, it's rare to find someone who would like you for who you are. Faced with such clear rejection, Alex had no ground to stand on. He finally seemed to give up, his shoulders drooping in defeat. Knowing his tendency to seek sympathy at any opportunity, both Keith and I firmly refused and left the house. Then, please proceed through the lawyer. Alex did not respond to my final words. Upon learning about Keith's earnings, Alex predictably refused to back down and naturally opposed the divorce. Keith is my precious son. Why should we live apart when we are connected by blood? That's just wrong. Despite his previous lack of interest, Alex became desperate to take custody of Keith. Surprisingly, it was my in-laws who convinced Alex otherwise. You know, we heard everything from Keith. You barely took care of him, pushed everything onto Jessica. And then went off cheating? And now you have the nerve to claim your rights? Exactly. Raising a child isn't as easy as you think. It's a daily responsibility, a constant worry, and you dumped all that on Jessica. And now you're making a fuss? Shame on you. I must have misunderstood. I thought Keith was unwelcome by my in-laws. But they were actually struggling to care for him as best as they could. Keith even said, even after the divorce, I'd like to see Grandpa and Grandma again. Thanks to their repeated attempts at persuasion, Alex finally agreed to the divorce. Of course, we demanded compensation. Although it seemed he had no savings. We discovered a secret account he had been squirreling money away in. Thankfully, we were able to secure the entire compensation payment from this account. Regarding child support, my in-laws promised to ensure Alex fulfilled his responsibilities. Interestingly, after Hannah reported him to the president of Johnson Construction, Alex became a target at work, leading to his resignation. He is currently getting by on part-time jobs. Keith and I are living happily. His love for drawing is as strong as ever. Watching him draw so joyfully is truly adorable. His physical condition still requires ongoing rehabilitation. Though progress is slow, his condition is steadily improving. I'm there to support him, making sure not to push him too hard. I'd like to say I continued with video editing work within a manageable scope. But the truth is, my dream has since changed. I enrolled in a vocational school to become a physical therapist, not for editing. My motivation was straightforward. The physical therapists who supported Keith in his efforts appeared so admirable to me that I aspired to be like them. If one day I can help children like Keith, the fulfillment would be immense. Lately, it seems Keith and I are starting to look alike. Even though we're not related by blood, Keith says shyly, which I find endearing. As a mother, I vow to support him until the day he's ready to leave the nest. The thought of that day is a mix of anticipation and sadness, a complex feeling indeed.